What does it mean to be a feminist in the years 2010? Is the term feminist losing meaning as many female pop stars call themselves feminists and use the word for performance, like Beyoncé in 2014 during the MTV Music Awards when she sang in front of a giant screen blazoned with the word feminist? Female empowerment and girl power are also a part of popular screen culture thanks to the numerous film and TV series portraying strong active heroines who don't need men to protect or rescue them anymore. It seems that feminism has become a trendy label or a marketing slogan in the music and entertainment businesses. And it does not cover anymore a strong political dimension compared to the past. Once considered militant, radical, and even dangerous, feminism appears today to be completely mainstream and ordinary. Many people, including women, seem to think that women's rights have already been fully accomplished, and they forget that the battle for pay equality or reproductive rights is still on in the US, that ordinary sexism is ever present in Western countries. Indeed, nowadays, women are still paid 20% less than men. Men with equivalent experience are promoted over women. Women with children are hired less. Successful women are viewed as less likable than successful men. Besides, women continue carrying what is called a double burden, or they are faced with a double day if they want to have a career and a family life, whereas men don't experience the same pressure to succeed at work and at home. As scholar Cynthia Garcia Cole says, even if they earn professional and economic independence, women are still trapped in traditional visions of their role as homemakers. I quote, "As long as raising families is considered women's work and is not valued in society, that's not equality." So today's lecture will be threefold. First, we'll study the evolution from the third wave feminism to fourth wave feminism. Then we'll see how women opposed Donald Trump with the 2017 Women's March. And finally, we'll devote the last part of the lecture to understand metoo, from a social media movement to a political bill. And we'll conclude with the limits of metoo, with very recent events linked to Justice Barrett in 2020. In the 1990s started the third wave of feminism, which gathered women whose mothers had benefited from the major changes of the 60s and 70s. These new feminists were born into a world where feminism had always existed. This third moment was more inclusive of women and girls of color because the second wave of feminism overemphasized experiences of upper and middle class white women. Third wave feminism was more interested in a global and multicultural approach. The new feminists considered that issues faced by women should be understood in terms of how race, ethnicity, class, religion, and gender impacted their life, and feminism should not be understood only in terms of opposition to patriarchy. So they raised the issue of intersectionality. Intersectionality means the connection between race, ethnicity, class, religion, and gender. Also, while the second wave of feminism was very heteronormative, the third wave welcomed more lesbians and bisexual women. This new form of feminism also relied more on personal narrative and experiences as a form of feminist theory. This is why it is considered a form of feminism more centered on the individual, with a special interest um, in personal narrative and experiences. The aspects of the feminist struggle continued being equal pay, reproductive rights, ending violence against women. It also encouraged women to talk about sex with more freedom, casualness, informality, and with positivity. A major event triggered the third wave of feminism. In 2000, sorry, in 1991, the American lawyer Anita Hill gave a testimony in front of the Senate, and this testimony was broadcast live on national TV. So Anita Hill gave a testimony in front of Senate to denounce the sexual assaults of Clarence Thomas, who was a nominee for the US Supreme Court. So despite the accusation of sexual misconduct, Clarence Thomas was confirmed as Supreme Court Justice, but Anita Hill became a symbol of resistance. And her testimony helped people understand what sexual harassment in the workplace was. So Anita Hill stood as a symbol of resistance and made people aware of the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace. Anita Hill testified in front of only white men, and her testimony raised the issue of white male domination and the underrepresentation of women in US institutions. Consequently, the role of women in US politics changed the following year. Indeed, in 1992, which was called the Year of the Woman, 24 women won seats in the House of Representatives and 4 won seats in the Senate. So before 1992, there had never been more than 2 women serving in the Senate at the same time, and this was really a landmark victory. Women were given a larger political role in lawmaking. 2018 was also called the Year of the Woman because many women were elected to executive offices in Congress, and they won a great number of seats in Congress. And in 2019, 25 women served in the US Senate and 101 in the House of Representatives. However, the 1990s, like the years 2010, were decades of numerous sexual scandal epitomized by the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal in 1998. The Clinton-Lewinsky scandal led to charges of perjury and to the impeachment of President Clinton. This ongoing climate of sexual misconduct influenced the concerns of the fourth wave of feminism, which began about 2012 and focused largely on sexual harassment, body shaming, rape culture, among other issues. The major change of the fourth wave feminism is the intensive use of social media and the online struggle. The internet activism and social media activism manages to raise wider awareness about feminist discourse and to give a more international dimension to initiatives. For example, metoo had a global impact on many countries. It expanded in France with the hashtag Balance ton porc, and in Spain and Latin America with the Yo Tambien online campaigns to denounce sexual harassment. Since October 2017, metoo used has been used an average of 50,000 times a day on Twitter in at least 85 countries. Almost a third of these tweets have been in languages other than English. The internet has allowed unlimited and unrestricted public conversations about women's issues around the world. Another example could be the hashtag Time's Up campaign launched by female celebrities after the Weinstein sex scandal in 2017. Hollywood employees have actually started a fund and raised money to support women fighting sexual misconduct. Internet has become the most powerful tool for what is called silence breakers. And it is important to note that the silence breakers have been selected as Time Magazine's 2017 Person of the Year. So silence breakers are important in revealing the wrongdoings women are suffering. Now let's move on to the opposition between Donald Trump and women, the second part of this lecture. Many American women felt deeply concerned when Donald Trump was elected president in November 2016. Due to his numerous sexist statements which belittled or depreciated women, and also due to the different allegations of sexual misconduct against him. Many people felt that a sexual predator and an enemy of women was about to enter the White House. During the 2016 presidential campaign, a recording of 2005 had exposed Trump commenting in crude language about his behavior with women. Indeed, he said, "I grabbed them by the pussy." And numerous women came forward with accusations about his past inappropriate sexual conduct towards them. Moreover, when talking about his opponent Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump used many times the insulting expression "nasty woman" during the debates. This pejorative term was discussed on social media because it illustrated Trump's disdain or disrespect of women. On November 8, 2016, Trump unexpectedly won the presidential election against Hillary Clinton. Clinton was the first female presidential nominee of a major party in American history. Trump's victory outraged and saddened many who objected to his past and recent treatment and statement about women. As a result, a pro-woman march was imagined in reaction to Trump's election. In order to protest Donald Trump's inauguration as President of the United States on January the 20th, 2017, the Women's March was organized in Washington, D.C. as a way to express defiance. Sister marches were also held in all 50 states and more than 30 foreign countries, including France. The peaceful DC March was streamed live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and gathered about 1 million people. The different marches in other places got together about 4 million participants. It was the largest protest recorded in American history, topping the enormous demonstration of the civil rights era and those against the Vietnam War, so the most important demonstration in American history, with the largest protest recorded before demonstrations during the 60s against for the civil rights movement and against the Vietnam War. The goal of the Women's March was to send a message to the new Trump administration, which was perceived as a threat or a menace to reproductive, civil, and human rights. most protesters decided to wear an emblematic pink pussy hat to make a unified statement against the vulgar comments Donald Trump made about the freedom he felt to grab women's genital and to destigmatize the word pussy and transform it into one of empowerment. The Pussy Hat Project was also launched to show that it was very easy to be politically active by just wearing a hat imitating a pussycat ears. Now let's talk about metoo, from social media to political bill. In 2006, Tarana Burke started the metoo movement to address the rampant sexual violence, and she enabled survivors to share and testify on social media. The goal of Burke was to spread a message for survivors. You're heard, you're understood. Originally, the work of Tarana Burke was centered on black women and girls in underprivileged or poor communities, and her work was designed to provide support and healing to victims who could benefit from understanding they were not alone anymore. Burke wanted to find new ways to find empathy and to provide consolation. But 10 years later, Burke's initiative would be radically transformed into an online mass movement backed by celebrities. Indeed, when widespread sexual abuse allegations against film producer Harvey Weinstein circulated in October 2017, the hashtag MeToo was used by the actress Alyssa Milano in order to give a new magnitude to the problem of sexual harassment and sexual assault. Milano asked her followers to share on social media their stories of sexual violence. The week MeToo went viral, thousands of women shared their painful personal experiences in order to open the eyes of many people, but men specifically. And they highlighted issues that had been silenced for too long. The movement has enabled many women to talk, but the movement has enabled many women to talk, but it has also faced severe backlash from men and women, even from President Trump, who blamed sexual assault survivors for being evil people, destroying other people's lives with their accusation. Trump called the movement a witch hunt, and he criticized it for triggering a gender war. For Tarana Burke, it is very difficult to see that what she has created has gone very, very far from its initial goal, and that support for survivors is now described as a vindicative plot against men. Moreover, the expansion of hashtag MeToo, so the expansion of the movement, highlights another common problem. Feminist movements are often whitewashed, and I repeat it, whitewashed, when they are brought into many mainstream conversations. Women of color are often overlooked and left out of the very conversation they created, and this is what happened to Tarana Burke, who was dispossessed from her original idea and work. After the MeToo movement gained attention, several states passed laws prohibiting the use of non-disclosure agreements. So non-disclosure agreements are a contract through which the parties agrees not to disclose or to display information. So, as I was saying, several states passed laws prohibiting the use of non-disclosure agreements in sexual misconduct cases. In 2018, California, New York, New Jersey banned the agreements in cases involving sexual assault, sexual harassment, and sex discrimination. In addition, the federal act Be Heard in the Workplace was introduced in 2019 by a group of female senators, and Be Heard bans some types of non-disclosure agreement to protect workers from harassment and discrimination. Moreover, Congresswomen introduced a bipartisan bill. Bipartisan means supported by the two major parties, namely the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So Congresswomen introduced a bipartisan bill to Congress called the Member and Employee Training and Oversight on Congress Act, the metoo Act. So this bill is designed to offer more protection against the sexual harassment of Congress workers. So this bill highlights the fact that the US Congress itself has been a hostile work environment for a long time, and that American institutions need to undergo major transformations. Washington needs to set a real example for the rest of the country. With the metoo bill, Congress staffers should be able to report incidents without fear of retaliation, without having to fear that it will ruin their career. The women who introduced the bill underlined that Congress should never be above the law and should be held in the highest standards, not the lowest. So the bill was passed in Congress in December 2018, opening an era of reform, and the House of Representatives and Senate overwhelmingly approved this piece of legislation. It seems that after changing culture, metoo is now changing American laws. The sufferings of women have been more and more acknowledged, and sexual crimes cannot go unpunished anymore. One recent example is the verdict of the trial of former USA gymnastics team doctor Larry Nassar. So the verdict of the trial has become one of the defining moments of the metoo era. In 2018, Nassar was sentenced to a total of 100 years of prison. 40 years for sexually abusing more than 100 young athletes, and 60 years for child pornography. Nassar will never get out of prison. And the judge who issued the verdict stated that Nassar did not deserve to be free again. She did not believe, the judge was a woman, so she did not believe in Nassar's possible rehabilitation compared to other criminals. Now, the last part of the lecture, the limits of metoo. However, all the optimistic promises of change triggered by the metoo movement are not kept. If many sexual assailants, like Weinstein or Nassar, have been punished for their crimes, others have remained in position of power. The best example is of course Donald Trump, but also the Supreme Court judge, Brett Kavanaugh. In July 2018, Trump nominated Kavanaugh as Supreme Court Justice, and several women accused Kavanaugh of sexual assaults. They even testified against him in front of the Senate. And it should remind you of Anita Hill against Clarence Thomas in 1991. So despite the sexual scandal, despite the indignation of many politicians and the numerous protests of women's rights activists, Kavanaugh was confirmed by the Senate as new justice in the Supreme Court, and he took office in October 2019. Juste pour clarifier un point, a Supreme Court Justice, c'est un juge de la Cour suprême. So Kavanaugh's confirmation is a major pitfall or a major drawback because he is known for his conservative views regarding reproductive rights, and the sexual misconduct allegations against him show that he has broken the code of conduct expected from a magistrate. especially in the Supreme Court. People are very worried about the future of the Supreme Court and also about the climate of impunity this decision has created. President Trump declared that many women were happy with Kavanaugh's confirmation because he's going to protect all men who were wrongly accused. I quote Trump, "They are thinking of their sons, they are thinking of their husbands, their brothers, their uncles, and others." Among conservative circles, the #HimToo hashtag appeared in response to the metoo movement in order to defend men who have been marginalized by the push of workforce equality and stories of sexual assault. The last blow against the metoo movement took place in October 2020 with the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. So Amy Coney Barrett has replaced Ruth Ginsburg, who died in September 2020. And Ginsburg was really famous for being a champion of feminism. Ginsburg was a real advocate of gender equality and women's rights, whereas Barrett is very religious, very conservative regarding issues like abortion, immigration, and gun laws. So for many people, the confirmation of Justice Barrett could be instrumental to overrule the right to abortion granted by Roe versus Wade in 1973. So people are afraid that Roe versus Wade, the decision taken in 1973, will be overruled and that abortion will be made illegal in America. Thank you for your attention. Bye.